Not long left now. It all began with something that I'm sure many of you have experienced. A hallucination, or at least what I believed to be a hallucination. Brought on, no doubt, by my lack of sleep, having to look after my newborn baby girl Sarah night and day. As I was walking to the bathroom, I looked into her room to check up on her, and saw what appeared to be a man's legs sticking out from just behind the door. Just a glimpse, nothing more, then gone. Nothing to worry me, I thought, just seeing things. And I was part right. I was just seeing things, for now at least. But I should have been worried. She seemed fine to me, as peaceful a child as I could have asked for. She lay there like me, unknowing of the horrors that lurked within our peaceful abode. Having checked on her, I proceeded into the bathroom in order to wash my face, and again, a flicker of an image, a man's face in the mirror, corner of my eye again, but for a moment, though it stayed with me for several seconds as though an echo. I could make out details of the face. It was ravaged by age, and he wore a top hat. It seemed partly in order to obscure his hideous visage. He had smiled, but it was hollow, forced. I tried to put it out of my mind, chalked it up to my overactive imagination. Everything's fine, I reassured myself, and went back to my study. was a researcher for the Metropolitan Police Department. It was my job to debunk claims of paranormal occurrences. Perfectly reasonable, I thought, that my work would affect me at least in part. I needed a holiday, to get away from all the happenings and the unexplained phenomena. Just then, the baby monitor crackled into life. It emitted a loud screech which made me drop my case file with a yell. Sarah started crying, so I prepared to go comfort her, before I heard something more over the one-way link. "Hush, little baby, don't say a word." That, I was certain, was real. I sprung up, knocking over my table and chair as I rushed into her room. The door was closed, where before it had been wide open. I hurriedly tried the handle, but the door wouldn't budge, despite it having no lock. I shouted at the door, "Hey!" and banged on the wood, at which a response came that chilled me to my core. "Mine!" The door flung open and I stumbled in. Everything appeared fine. Sarah was sleeping soundly. The door slammed shut behind me, waking her. I opened it and found nothing, until I turned to view the long mirror at the end of the hall. There he stood, behind me, his smile now more a grimace than anything else. A bony hand reached out and touched my shoulder. This I felt. I jumped and turned, finding only air behind me. Shaking, I gathered up Sarah and her necessaries and left for a hotel. I couldn't explain what had just happened, except as a combination of too much work and not enough sleep, but I had to get out of there. Our lives continued uneventfully for the next year or so. I had taken a well-earned break and returned to my job. However, things took a turn when I stumbled upon an old case, before my time, now solved. It concerned a man in his early 30s who had complained of seeing a ghostly apparition, a man in a top hat who had threatened the life of he and his young daughter. The exact nature of the case was not known to me at the time. It wasn't my place to solve crimes, just disprove paranormal activities. And as soon as I finished reading, I heard a chilling scream, and when I looked down I saw a blood-stained handprint. The fingernails had been sharpened and tapered to points. It looked more monster than man. It was then I saw where the blood had come from. I was suddenly aware of a pain in my chest. I pulled back my shirt to reveal 4 parallel slashes oozing crimson. After I had patched myself up with the first aid kit in my office, I rushed home to check on Sarah, who I had left with the babysitter. But when I arrived, I was greeted by the front door hanging from its hinges, claw marks across the frame, blood and filth strewn across the aperture. I entered. A path of carnage laid out afore me. I swallowed and crept silently up the stairs, afraid of what I might encounter at their peak. When I arrived atop the landing, I was met by the pungent scent of death. The sight of the sitter's mangled corpse almost forcing me to relinquish the contents of my stomach. I could hear creaking, the sound of a baby giggling. Sarah was alive. And in my study, As I slowly opened the door, I saw my late wife's rocking chair being used by... Even now I cannot recall any physical presence. Nothing, just Sarah floating in the air, swaying back and forth. I had no idea what to do. Could I simply take the child? What would happen if I approached her? I would not get a chance to find out, however, as I knocked the frame of a fallen photo by my feet. Instantly the rocking stopped. A crash resonated throughout the building and I was thrown into the wall. "Get out!" I saw Sarah fall into the seat of the chair and go limp. "No!" I screamed and struggled as I was pummeled by the unseen force. I screamed, asking for my daughter back. Again and again, struggling against the invisible force. The being disappeared, and I instantly fell to the floor. I rushed to Sarah. She was okay, just sleeping, but I wasn't going to stay another moment in that house. I took her and ran. I rented a van and just drove. I thought that if I kept moving, it wouldn't find me, couldn't get Sarah. We stayed like that for the next few years, the road, safe, stopping only to refuel, to resupply. I didn't see the top-hatted creature for a long time. Not until the 3rd year, in a dream. The face now contorted with unkempt loathing. "She is mine." I awoke with a start. The air hung, a thick miasma of tension. I could feel the presence in the room. There it was, standing beside her cot. "Get away from her!" It hissed. The being was so broken and disfigured now that it was barely recognizable as anything less than a grotesque, writhing mass. "You do not belong here. Leave us alone." I leapt at it, now deciding that enough was enough. Too long had I ran in terror from this being. Too long had it exercised its hold over my life. Either it would perish, or I would. I tore into it, clawing and biting, doing everything I could to hurt it. My feet and my hands were talons, my resolve now stronger than ever. I would excise this haunt with my last breath. The aftermath was secondary, unimportant. I threw it against the wall. I beat it and beat it. Our battle short-lived, but fierce. And as I watched the light from its eyes fade and be quenched by a veil of shadows and it breathed its final, I heard its shredded lungs expel a last. Why? This is what my pain had rewarded me with. I had persevered, and I had defeated my adversary. I had overcome the dread being, and yet a hollow emptiness resounded within me. I looked around, only to see Sarah, lying there, crushed in our struggle, an innocent victim of a needless battle. And what had I achieved? A dead daughter, a mangled corpse, a ruined life. All was lost. I took the hat, my small victory. I look at myself in the mirror, racked by age, my clothes ragged and torn. Already I can see my skin begin to peel. Time is running out. I hear the call. Perhaps I will be at peace if this... Wait. That child in the cot. Sarah. But she is crying. Perhaps if I close the door, she won't be bothered by the breeze. Hush, little baby, don't say a word. Who is that banging on the door? Doesn't he know? She's mine!